The River by Valerie Bloom. The river's a wanderer, a nomad, a tramp. He doesn't choose one place to set up his camp. The river's a winder, through valley and hill, he twists and he turns, he just cannot be still. The river's a hoarder, and he buries down deep those little treasures that he wants to keep. The river's a baby, he gurgles and hums, and sounds like he's happily sucking his thumb. The river's a singer, as he dances along, the countryside echoes the notes of his song. The river's a monster, hungry and vexed, he's gobble up trees, and he'll swallow you next. Hi everyone, I am Serra, and you're watching a late night poem review with Serra. As you have seen in the beginning of the video, today we are going to talk about one of my personal favorite poems in high school, entitled The River by Valerie Bloom. So before we jump into the river, please don't jump into the river literally. So let me introduce you to the poet who wrote this amazing piece, Valerie Bloom. Valerie Bloom is a Jamaican-born poet and a novelist based in the United Kingdom. She writes poetry in English and Jamaican for all ages and has performed her work throughout the world with many televisions and radio appearances. Her poetry is included in a number of anthologies and she tutors regularly for school and colleges. Today, Valerie Bloom is perhaps best known for her popular children's book and poetry collections. So one of the poems includes the one that we are going to discuss today, The River. So without further ado, let's dive into it. When we are analyzing a poetry, there are two important elements that we should first identify, which are the subject of the poem and the themes that central around the poem. So the subject in the poetry is pretty self-explanatory, as we can directly understand as we read that the poet is actually talking about a river. So in order to identify the theme, first we need to understand that the main element that the author is trying to portray in the poem. So the poem basically has vividly described about the bad and the good that comes from the persona, the river. So we can conclude that the most important thing that can be found in the poem is the perceptions of a man and a river. So this means that this poem actually consists of literal meaning and figurative meaning. Now, let's talk about the meaning of the poem. Figuratively, the poem talks about the nature of the river, the way the river moves and behaves. In stanza 1, the author talks about the nature of a river to always flow and does not have a permanent home. River will always flow as it is the natural occurrence of the river. In stanza 2, the poet talks about the river as it flows through valley and hill aimlessly without any destinations or any plans to settle down. In the next stanza, the river is described as a hoarder because, as we know, river often keeps whatever it collects and store it in the riverbed. In stanza 4 and 5, the river has been described to produce sounds just like babies and singer. So it makes a special yet peculiar sounds as it flows happily and dances swiftly. Hence why some people can actually seek a quiet and a peaceful time while just sitting at the river bank. The last stanza, on the other hand, talks about the river bedside. So a river can also claim human life by causing flood that could drown and injure human as the catastrophic event unfolds. Figuratively, the poet has personified the river as a man. So the river is actually a metaphor for man as he journeys through life. In first stanza, the man is described as a wanderer because he chooses to travel and does not settle to achieve stability in life. So the second stanza shows that a man is falling into temptation as he goes through life without vision and goals. Without proper decision, man may take the road that is less traveled by or take the straight and easy path in life. However, man won't make best decision because he simply has no goals and purpose in life. In stanza 3, man is said to be a hoarder because man may collect souvenirs to keep as a remembrance. It can also mean that human may need to face challenges in life and gain lessons to be better. In stanza 4 and 5, man can also act childlike when he is happy in life. He may radiate positive energy as he grows in life and people around him can actually feel his happiness or his vibe. He is also a fearless to share about his happiness to the world. Despite all the positive characteristics, the last stanza shows that men also have negative behavior. So, as we know, man or human is not perfect. He may be manipulative, mean, toxic, and even hot-tempered. So, man may bully or physically hurt someone and resort to violence. Man may also hurt someone with words. As we know, word is able to kill. And the river actually has successfully described the true nature of a human being. So that is basically the literal and the figurative meaning of the river poem by Valerie Bloom. Next, let's discuss about the structures, styles, and language in the poem. Okay, firstly, the poem consists of 6 stanzas with the rhyme scheme of A, B, C, B, as you can see in the screen right now. The style of the poetry, in my opinion, is very simple. This means that even as an ESL young learner or English second language learner, the poem can actually easily be comprehended and learned even by a young student. So the language use is also very easy for readers to engage and understand and have an active discussion about the poem. Furthermore, in analyzing a poem, we must learn about the poetic devices used in the poem. In this poem, there are many poetic devices used by the author to convey meaning more clearly. For example, the poet uses personification, so we can see a lot of personification in the poem. The author has given the river many human characteristics, such as the river gurgles, the river hums, and the river dances. Also, the letter R in river has also been written in capital letter, if you notice, indicating that the river is a man and is actually a proper noun. Next, there are few imageries in the poem. The visual imagery is, of course, the river. The auditory imagery is the sound that the river produces in stanza 4 and 5. Kinesthetic imagery or movement imagery of the poem has been described precisely in stanza 1 and 2, as it talks about the movement of the river. There are also few metaphors used in the poem. For example, the river has been said to be a wanderer, a winder, a collector, a baby, and a singer. Other than that, symbol is also a significant element in the poetry. In the last stanza, the river has been symbolized as a monster, as it can kill people when flood occur. So lastly, the author uses simile in the poem to describe the sounds that the river makes, as it is actually very similar to the sounds of a baby happily sucking his thumb. Lastly, we are going to end this poem discussion with a lesson from the poem. There are a few lessons that I have learned from the poem. First, the poem taught me to have goals in life. Without goals and vision, we cannot make the best decision in life and we won't be able to live life to the fullest. Next, we should always work on becoming the better version of ourselves. We need to eliminate all the negative behavior and flaws that can actually destroy relationship and even destroy oneself. We must always try to be the better version of ourselves. And besides that, we should always protect our river. For example, we can reduce our water usage, take a quick shower to preserve water, and never ever throw rubbish or anything in the river. That's basically how you take care of your river. And with that said, finally we are at the end of our discussion. So let me recap a few things that we have talked about today. First, we have take a look at the poem written by the Valerie Bloom, The River, and we discuss about the important elements of the poem, which include the subject and the themes of the poem. We have also talked about the literal and the figurative meaning of the poem. We also learned about the literary devices used in the poem. And lastly, we ended the discussion with the lessons that we can actually learn from the poem. In my opinion, this is actually a very wonderful poem, as it is easy to understand and it influences the reader to actually take care of our river. So despite the bad side of the river actually still supplies us the human with food, water supply, and a place to help us human to survive. So the river doesn't just carry water, it carries life. So with that said, that is all the time that I have got for today. If you have any questions, suggestions, or comment or feedback, please do drop your reply in the comment section down below, and I would try my best to actually answer them, and I would love to interact with all of you the viewer, and have a lovely day. And yes, thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.